Sup everybody, this is Ambro, and today we're chatting about Atomfall. Atomfall, developed by Rebellion Developments, which is actually the same studio who made the recent Sniper Elite Resistance and all its subsequent prequels, is releasing on March 27th, 2025 for the PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series family of consoles, and PC via Steam for $49.99 USD. It will be coming to Xbox Game Pass Day 1 as well for subscribers. The setup. Atomfall. In 1957, Britain faced one of its worst nuclear disasters, the Windscale fire. A reactor meltdown, radiation leaks, and government cover-ups. But what if this was only the beginning? 5 years later, something far worse is happening inside the quarantine zone. Now, before we get into it, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell to get alleged notifications on when the next video drops. Here are 5 things you need to know about Rebellion Developments' upcoming Atomfall. So again, welcome to Atomfall. This is a brand new first-person action horror experience that reimagines this dark chapter in history. Set in an irradiated British countryside, the game masterfully blends historical fact, supernatural horror, and survival mechanics, where every decision matters. Okay, confession time. I'm not huge into horror-based games. Like, I completely appreciate they exist, but I'm not the first one in the metaphorical line to pick up the new Resident Evil or Dead Space. And I love Dead Space. Okay. That being said, I love that horror-based games exist. The original BioShock is one of my all-time favorite games, and yes, it's basically retro at this point. I know I'm showing my age, but you guys remember how scary that shit was in its opening, like, 30 minutes? But that game wasn't built as a horror game. It had all this world building, this lore, and organic storytelling that didn't necessarily need dialogue to tell me what went wrong. What I mean is, it made sense where Rapture ultimately ended up after the events that transpired. It grounded the setting and made it believable. Now, with that out of the way, and despite my feelings toward horror-based jump scare type games, I love a good atmosphere. Not to sound like a broken record, but games like the original BioShock, Stalker, Fallout, and Metro, which this game is going to be compared to all of them endlessly and respectively, oozed with atmosphere and is a huge reason why they're all beloved for their own reasons. These types of games thrive on atmosphere, and Atomfall fully commits to its eerie post-disaster setting. The game places you in a British countryside that has never felt more hostile. Rolling green hills are replaced by quarantine barriers, crumbling villages, and government checkpoints. This once idyllic landscape is now filled with radiation hotspots, abandoned homes, and signs of something much darker creeping beneath the surface. And this really goes with the game's ability to blend historical horror with supernatural mystery. And because the world of Atomfall draws from real events but twists them into this unsettling fiction, the game is able to speculate what if something else was buried there. The developers use this historical foundation to ground the horror, just like Stalker used Chernobyl as a jumping off point. But unlike purely scientific disaster horror, Atomfall introduces elements of British folklore and mysticism, making the line between reality and nightmare kind of blurred together. It's not just about the radiation exposure and survival, it's about uncovering the deeper horrors of lurking within the zone. Now let's get into some of the gameplay mechanics and break those down. Now, survival games often rely on scavenging and crafting, but Atomfall adds a layer of complexity by forcing the players to constantly assess the risk and reward. You have your resource management, and every item that you pick up has a weight, and carrying too much will slow you down. Food, medical supplies, and clean water are essential to keeping you in good shape and being able to progress forward. The game also has a crafting system, and unlike games where crafting is simply about combining materials, Atomfall forces you to make those in-the-moment choices. Do you use your last bit of cloth to wrap a wound, or do you trade it in for something more valuable? I love that the game does this, as it really does make you think. It's easy to play a game with infinite inventory space and set and forget your junk from your main gear. But there's a reason that I really enjoy the backpack mechanic in Stalker 2, for example, where you have to dynamically manage your inventory, both in terms of quantity of items and the actual space in your backpack. It keeps the character feel grounded in that space they inhabit, and I applaud Rebellion for implementing a similar feature. Beyond that, you also have dynamic bartering in Atomfall, and unlike most survival horror games where resources are simply found, Atomfall introduces NPC trade systems. Some traders might give you fair deals, and others will exploit your desperation. You might find yourself being manipulated, ambushed, or scammed, depending on who you trust, which should be nobody. But I love that they've added this into the game. It makes the game feel believable, and humans acting like pieces of shit. It's not like a human would ever do that. The combat in Atomfall also emphasizes the survival over the heroics. Unlike in most action-oriented games, Atomfall discourages direct confrontation. Your weapons will degrade, your ammunition is scarce, and enemies, both human and supernatural, frankly, are best avoided. but weapons can be improved over time. It seems that ammo will be in very short supply, much like in the Metro games. That makes exploration actually kind of crucial to staying stockpiled with ammo. But this is survival horror at its core. You have to manage not just your resources, but your sanity and decision making in a world that's both collapsing and perhaps unraveling around you. I think this overarching feeling as you play the game is what gives that sense of atmosphere to Atomfall and games like BioShock, Stalker, Fallout, etc. It's not necessarily the shooting mechanics in those games that you remember. No, it's definitely not the shooting, but the feeling, that aura. It's hard to explain it fully, but you know what I'm talking about. I want to go over the world and various NPCs and characters you'll meet because this also seems like a big focus. Perhaps on the nose as it could possibly be, like in Stalker, there is an exclusion zone in Atomfall. But the exclusion zone is more than just an abandoned wasteland. It's filled with survivors, government agents, cultists, and creatures. Oh god, get it off! Now you're going to find a lot lurking in the quarantine zone. You have government forces, as mentioned before. Protocol, aka the British military, is still active in the area, but they're not necessarily on your side. They're totally covering up something and they don't want you to get too close. Then you have cultists, of which some survivors worship the disaster itself. There's also eccentric survivors, and with each one of these factions and differing backgrounds of belief, each NPC has a story, a motive, and an agenda. Some might help you, while others might lure you into a trap. You're going to encounter haunting visions, ancient symbols, and whispers of something inhuman that's going on that the radiation may have awakened. The writing here is going to be a key strength because these characters don't feel like simple quest givers. They're going to be unpredictable and potentially dangerous and probably desperate. Now, just a quick thing in terms of immersion, this game has full body awareness, which means you can see your character's own body if you look down. This is always greatly appreciated, but I don't think most people understand how difficult it is to make this work compared to the alternative, which is just a floating head, I presume. Even games like Starfield, by comparison, which is a huge AAA RPG from a major publisher slash console manufacturer, does not have this in the first person, and it drives me nuts. Which is made all the more confusing by the fact that the game offers a full third-person view. Now, I'm not a game dev, I just need things to make sense. Just a small thing I had to call out. Now, I know to this point we've spoken a lot about choices and immersion and the different gameplay mechanics, but the game's premise is based on real-life events. There's a deeply woven narrative here underneath all the gameplay elements that we've touched on already. Firstly, you have a story that blends history, horror, and folklore. You have the scenario where historical accuracy meets conspiracy. The Windscale fire and its real-world cover-up serves as the backdrop. The deeper you dig, the more you're going to uncover hidden experiments, lost research, and classified government projects. I love that we have this British mysticism and horror to uncover. Stone circles and whispers of ancient forces to hint at something beyond just what the eye can see. And then we have the classic personal tale of survival. Your character has a personal reason for being here. Do you have a missing loved one? Maybe a personal vendetta? Well, that's for us as the players to uncover. It is this blend of real-world horror and supernatural dread that makes every discovery feel unsettling and deeply connected to something much older than the disaster itself, and personally, I can't wait to dive in. Now, what makes Atomfall actually stand out? As a whole, you have a handful of things going for it. There's the authentic British post-disaster setting, and unlike most survival horror games set in US or Eastern Europe, Atomfall leans into British history, culture, and folklore. Listen, me dumb American, so I will not pretend to understand or speak to anything in British culture, so help me out in the comments if I say something stupid. There's also complex NPC interaction systems, which is super cool that the devs have made a point to call out how NPCs react dynamically to your actions, forming relationships that can help or hinder your survival. We've already talked about having multiple narrative paths and how your choices will directly affect how the world around you responds. Will you align with the military? Perhaps you'll align with the cult, or maybe you just go about all of this alone. Better to trust no one, right? Then you have the blend of survival horror and folk horror, and few games frankly manage to successfully merge history, survival, and folklore, and the way Atomfall seems to be doing this is a huge reason for the general public interest, I'd say. Every system feeds into this larger theme of paranoia, uncertainty, and fear, and makes Atomfall feel like something truly unique. Now, I think the only fair way to rate this game is to go by the developer's past work. As I mentioned very briefly at the beginning of this video, Rebellion are actually the devs who have worked on the very recently released Sniper Elite Resistance, as well as the games in the franchise that came before it. Now, if you've never played those games, that's okay. They are fantastic in their own right, but the game's now cross-generation limitations have become blatantly obvious in Resistance versus its predecessor. But what the Sniper Elite series does well isn't just its awesome slow-mo kills that made the franchise really stand out, but it's the series' commitment to being a stylized period piece piece with creative liberties taken, of course. It only takes 30 seconds or so to sit and listen to the opening monologue or watch one of the campy, overly dramatic cutscenes to get that feeling of patriotism and camaraderie like the early hours of Saving Private Ryan or Band of Brothers. Rebellion excels at that, and it's good to see them take the next step here with Atomfall. It's clear that they have a strong vision that they're confident in bringing to life. Most developers would not put out content like this on their own channels. If that's not confidence, I don't know what is. Look, I'm not glazing Rebellion here to try and convince you to get the game. Hell, it's not even like this channel's big enough to move the needle in any convincing way. But what I am trying to tell you is this game will not be perfect. No game is, but the love and passion being put into this game is clear. It is not a big AAA funded project, and it's being priced appropriately as such, which is a really nice consideration. But times are hard and game development is expensive. The average consumers are also struggling, so I always appreciate when the devs and or the publishers don't just price the game at the new standard because money. Before I go on an endless rant, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to get allegedly instant notifications on when the next video drops. And let us know down in the comments, are you excited for Atomfall? Am I totally off in my reasonings for how I feel about the game? Are you worried about the game being only first person? Let's chat. As always, this is Ambro keeping you plugged into the games that matter. Peace out.